to talk about the Bills, they fired Ken Dorsey. It's about fucking time. He has not been good all year. The system is broken. The schematics is very boring and it's very played out. And Dan Orlovsky, shout out to him. I'm glad y'all told me he played football because I was just watching him this morning because now that I know who he is, it's kind of all clicking together. He said, everybody knows the Bills playbook walking into the game. Offensively.
Spam Stefan.
No, everybody knows exactly what the Bills are going to do every single game. Do you know how embarrassing that is that you've played 10 games? Going back to last year, he said everybody knows their game. So it's like, you needed a change. 5-5. You've had shitty performances against the Giants. You've had shitty performances against the Patriots. And, you know, I've seen Bills fans talk about ever since Miami, you know, they lost their funk because defensively they got hurt ever since that Jaguars game coming back from London. But, dude, the defense, I got to give them credit because they have been getting their slack. But against the Bengals, against who they just played? Oh, my God, I'm blanking. Against the Broncos, the defense was holding it down. The defense was playing great football for the most part, especially a defense that banged up. And mind you, they're losing guys in between the games, like
in the position they were in. Every drive last night felt like the Broncos had the ball at the 50-yard line.
Yeah, like the punt returns were great, 50-yard line, and Buffalo is losing a guy every single drive. There's a defensive lineman getting out. There's a secondary getting out. Like they're losing a player in that defense.
Yeah, Micah Hyde didn't play.
Yeah, they showed that something wrong with his neck, but they showed out. They play well offensively. This Bills offense hasn't been able to get together for about 5 to 6 weeks, you know, and we expected, you know, what Josh Allen has showed us over the last 2 or 3 seasons is he can backpack an offense. He can, you know, and statistically he's been great individually, but just from the eye test, like Joel mentioned before, sometimes the eye test can tell you something different. Just from the eye test from this Bills team, they look out of funk. They look figured out. They look sloppy. They don't look engaged. They don't look together. And, you know, we can blame the Josh Allen turnovers, which he's always throws a really terrible one. But last game, Gabe Davis dropped a clean one, which Josh Allen throws that ball like that, 90% through the middle. It went right through Gabe Davis' hands. Kincaid had an important drop that would have gave him a first down. Stephon Diggs had another drop on third down, which he had one-on-one with a linebacker, which would have easily been 12 to 13 yards. They had a fumble. James Cook had a fumble in the beginning, which he redeemed himself.
He did.
In the fourth, but he had a fumble to start the game, which gave the Broncos elite field position, which, once again, the defense was great, forced him into a field goal, forced him into multiple field goals, but Ken Dorsey is gone. I think Sean McDermott will be gone towards the end of the year. I think you need something different. You need to salvage what you can from this era. Can you fix this team up? It's going to happen between the draft. You have a lot of old guys in that defense. Von Miller hasn't shown you nothing, even when he played this year. Tre'Davious White, back-to-back season-ending injuries. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, they're getting up there in age. Daquan Jones is up there in age. Like, you got a lot of guys that are up there in age on this defense. And offensively, you need a number 2. You know, Gabe Davis did improve slightly, but you need a consistent number 2. I think Dalton Kincaid is a perfect replacement for Dawson Knox, or even if you want to keep both. But you need a number 2 guy. Shout out to Shakir. He's done all he can in his role, but he's not going to be good enough either. And I think this Bills team, you know, as great as Josh Allen is, his contract is going to kick in next year. You got to kind of be able to build this team through the draft, cut some players, and kind of salvage what you can from a team that is kind of dwindling on no hope right now. I don't see a chance that they can gauntlet through this. Like, they can go through this gauntlet schedule and win a hell of games with this offense playing the way it's playing, especially with Dallas coming up, Miami later in the year. I believe they have Philadelphia coming
KC,
up.
I think they got KC.
They do got KC down the road.
Their next slate of games is crazy.
It's nuts.
Versus Jets, at the Eagles, at the Chiefs, versus the Cowboys, at the Chargers, and then they finish off the season with
Miami,
Patriots, but then at Miami.
Yep. So
that's terrible, bro.
It's terrible, especially with you had winnable games. A Patriots game you could have won, defense couldn't get a stop. Denver game you could have won, a lot of mishaps in the fourth quarter. Like, there's multiple games you could have won and you wouldn't be in this situation. But, you know, they seen the error of their ways. They fired Ken Dorsey. I expect Sean McDermott to be out, if not in the middle of this year, definitely by the end of the offseason.
I think they'll respect him enough to keep him
for sure, even though he doesn't deserve it. But for sure, they definitely will respect him enough. But, you know, you got to kind of salvage what you can from this Bills team that pretty much their window is closed.
Whew. This is surprising news when I saw it this morning.
Was he scapegoated?
He was scapegoated. Absolutely.
Yes,
he was.
What are we doing?
Shout out to Denver.
The wrong guy got fired, but we're here.
Shout out to Denver, though. Big win. Keeping their playoff hopes alive, you know.
Thank you. You didn't even acknowledge Denver.
After starting
I was
off
going to let you do it.
Terrible. You know, me up here talking shit about Sean Payton, which I will continue to do because I don't like Sean Payton talking shit about Jets. They turned it around, and you got to give them respect for that. Big win on the road. But talk about Buffalo Bills. Brett Coleman had a great video that I watched last week, like a couple of days before this Bills video, this Bills game happened on Monday Night Football, where you look at the advanced stats for Buffalo. You look at the EPA, DVOA, anything, where you look at basically theoretical points. Like the Bills should be scoring all of these points. And they're not. And it's been for a couple of reasons, really. One, the first half of the season, they were, I want to say, top 5 in terms of converting on field goals. And then these last 4 weeks, they're bottom 3 in terms of hitting on field goals. I think from weeks 5 to 9, they've attempted 6 field goals. They only made 3 of them. So they get these big chunk plays, and you guys should go watch the Brett Coleman video. He's going to explain it much better than me. But basically, they get put in these positions where they're on like the 10 or 20 yard line. And you know how Josh Allen, Gabe Davis, and Diggs in this offense is. They have these huge explosive plays where they go 30 yards down the field. And now your EPA rises, right? You go from a 0 EPA or whatever to now it's like +2 because you're expected once you're on the 50-yard line to at least get some points out of this drive. And then once they get in position, that's when they fuck up. They either stall out, they go 3 and out, they get a turnover, a penalty to put them back 10 more yards. So the Bills theoretically should be scoring all of these points, but they don't. Because in these key situations, which we saw even last night, where they had multiple turnovers, 4 or 5 turnovers in a single game, they get into position to score almost every single drive. They're in Broncos territory. They're right on the cusp of scoring, and something screw ups. Gabe Davis drops a ball. He turns into an interception. They get a flag, whatever it might be. So it does feel like Ken Dorsey was scapegoated because I think 2 things can be true. I think number 1, Josh Allen is still elite quarterback. I still think that you should be talking about him as a top 5 quarterback in this game. But I don't think Ken Dorsey did the best job at making this a balanced offense, especially when you look at the run game. James Cook last night, he fumbled. Who the fuck cares? It's inexcusable. James Cook is your best running back on this team. I know Latavius Murray had a good stat line at the end of the game, but there is no chance in God's name you convince me Latavius Murray is a better running back than James Cook. He's phenomenal. So he gets benched because he fumbles the ball. Like, what year is it that we have to send these guys a message because you fumbled the ball? No. You want the best players to go out there on the field because they give you the best chance to win the game. That was a big blunder. But for Buffalo, we've talked about it week in and week out. We talked about year in and year out. It's been the turnovers for them. I mean, Josh Allen, as great as he is, it's one thing if he's throwing interceptions. It's another thing if the surrounding players are making mistakes, right? Josh Allen's going to have these interceptions because he's pushing the ball downfield at such a high rate. But when Gabe Davis is dropping balls, when James Cook, which, listen, everyone's going to fumble, but when James Cook is fumbling balls, those are the things you can't have happen because Josh Allen's going to be special. He's going to make big plays happen. But when the other players who aren't as special as Josh Allen, they don't have the same margin for error because we know Gabe Davis is going to make 2 catches for 60 yards. But outside of that, is he really going to do much? James Cook is able to make those big chunk plays as well. But we're not looking at him like this super explosive top 5 type running back in the NFL. He has to take care of the ball. So Ken Dorsey does feel like a bit of a scapegoat here, but this upcoming schedule for Buffalo is brutal. And I talked about this, I think, last offseason, the one prior when they gave Sean McDermott the extension. It was head-scratching because I'm looking at this offense. I'm looking at this team as not a team that's progressing, not a team that year in and year out we are feeling better about, that we think can get over the hump, make a Super Bowl appearance, make a Super Bowl run. And this is probably going to be the year where everything comes together. Sean McDermott moves on. But you're going to have a great head coaching position. And I know everyone's talking about Ben Johnson and all of these potential offensive coordinators that they want to bring in to be the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills. I'm sure people are going to be lining up for this job because there's not a lot of Josh Allens out there. They're going to be able to work with it. But right now, it's not working with McDermott.
Ken Dorsey was scapegoated. It's as simple as that. And it's quite obvious that he was scapegoated because had the Bills won this game, Ken Dorsey's not getting fired. They lost this game. Ken Dorsey gets fired, but I'm looking at the mistakes they had. Josh Allen had 2 interceptions. One of them wasn't his fault. It was a Gabe Davis drop. The other one was just he trusted his arm too much to fit it into a tight window. He got intercepted.
Shout out to my brother.
That's not a Ken Dorsey problem. James Cook fumbled. That's not a Ken Dorsey problem. The Allen and James Cook handoff that was botched that turned into a fumble. That's not a Ken Dorsey problem. This Bills defense led up 2 touchdowns. Well, led up a touchdown to Russell Wilson. On 3rd down, I believe it was, Russell Wilson extended the play, made a hell of a throw to Sutton. That was a touchdown. That's an incredible throw, an incredible play. That's not on Ken Dorsey. The last sequence of the game where on 2nd and 4, it's an all-out blitz to get the Broncos out of field goal range. It's successful. 3rd and 10, you send another all-out blitz. You allow the Broncos to dial up a go shot, a go ball to Jerry Jeudy against Teron Johnson.
Who fries him?
It's a defensive pass interference. That's not on Ken Dorsey. Having 12 men on the field, that's not on Ken Dorsey. I'm looking at the Bills' offensive ranks this year, 3rd in DVOA, 1st in success rate, 3rd in EPA per play. I understand EPA per play is a hypothetical stat. That's because from each positive play a team makes, it measures the expected points added from that play. It's still a very valuable stat, but even on the surface level stats that aren't advanced, the Bills right now, Josh Allen's 4th in QBR. They're 3rd in yards per play. They're 2nd in 3rd down conversion percentage. They're 3rd in red zone efficiency. You can chalk all of that up to, well, Josh Allen is just a great player and he's masking Ken Dorsey's deficiencies. Or you can say, Josh Allen is great, but Ken Dorsey has been doing some things. And I think over the course of the season, Ken Dorsey has tried to implement the running game more. Mm-hmm. He's tried to find more solutions. The fact that they
getting
fired
Kincaid involved, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
yes,
but really.
Getting Dalton Kincaid involved, moving more towards an 11 personnel type of offense instead of 12 personnel because Dawson Knox went down and they were more efficient that way. I'm looking at the Bills and you fire Ken Dorsey and an interim OC now is Joe Brady. Joe Brady, his claim to fame is being the OC for the 2019 LSU team that was led by Joe Burrow that had Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Thaddeus Moss, and a plethora of other players.
Clyde
Edwards-Helaire. I mean, that team was stacked. That was Joe Brady's claim to fame. But since Joe Brady's been in the NFL, he was an OC for the Panthers 2 times. He did not have a successful offense in either season. I understand it's the Panthers. But the fact that you let go of Ken Dorsey for Joe Brady now to take over the play calling duties for the rest of the season, I think this was a panic move. Sean McDermott has to look himself in the mirror. Josh Allen has to look himself in the mirror. And I compare Josh Allen to a high-usage superstar in the NBA. Russell Wilson, when he averaged a triple-double in the 2017 MVP season, he's not Luka. Luka's better. Let's get that straight. Luka's better.
I feel like that's a perfect comparison.
Neither one of them have went to any conference. Oh, actually, Josh did.
Yeah, and so did Luka.
Oh, facts, he did.
I'm telling you, this is the perfect comparison.
Russell Westbrook.
Run from it. Hide from it. It's the truth, baby.
Russell Westbrook, he was going to give you 4 to 5 turnovers per game, but he was going to average triple-double and do everything else. Josh Allen is this offense. His positive plays greatly outweigh the negative ones. And people trying to use his turnovers against him like he's some mediocre quarterback or he's not worthy of his current standing in the NFL is ridiculous. He's a top-level quarterback, but the turnovers have to be cut down. And I think eventually the Bills have to bring in a head coach that can coach Josh Allen and coach those bad habits out of him. A couple weeks ago, I made a take about Brian Dable maybe coming back. A lot of things have to happen for that reunion to transpire. 1, Sean McDermott has to be fired. I think that can happen. Number 2, the Giants have to miss out on the 1st or the 2nd overall pick because if Brian Dable does not have a Caleb Williams or a Drake May to build around in New York, I don't know how much he'd want to be on a rebuilding team with the Giants. So he'd want to ask out, and then a trade would have to happen. So a lot of things have to happen, but I think it's not an unrealistic scenario. But ultimately, with Sean McDermott and his woes late in games with the defense, with the predictable offense, with the turnovers on this team, not just on Josh Allen, but the other players around him, with Stephon Diggs having his brother Trayvon Diggs on Twitter airing grievances about the team and calling out Josh Allen and saying to the entire world that gets Stephon off the team, I think this team right now is imploding right in front of our eyes. And firing Ken Dorsey was a panic move, 100%.
The Buffalo Bills, an interesting team for the idea that you have a great collection of guys. It's just a matter of getting them all on the same page and being able to get victories in situations like we saw last night. You had a prime position to win. It was just a lack of discipline. That's ultimately why you didn't come away with this W. Ken Dorsey most definitely was scapegoated. Josh Allen needs to do a better job of not turning the ball over. It's just that simple. We can praise Josh Allen like he deserves, but in the grand scheme of things, you can't turn the ball over as much as you do. You need to do a better job of holding it. Just like we saw it right before the half started. He throws that interception. Fabian Moreau makes a nice play, and then we go and we get points out of it. That's where issues become. I'm fine with the chuck it up, long punt throw type situation. That's different. We've seen Josh Allen have those. But in situations like last night, you need to do a better job of being disciplined, holding on to the ball, making plays when it's timely. I'm with you. Definitely scapegoated. But really, what else is there to say that you guys haven't already said? The Buffalo Bills, 5-5 at this current point in time. The division's looking very unlikely. I saw a statistic that said that the Miami Dolphins have an over 80% chance of winning the division after last night's loss. I mean, at that point, we're looking at a group of teams in that 6, 7, 8. I still trust the Cincinnati Bengals more than I trust the Buffalo Bills for sure at this point in time. The Houston Texans, I don't know if I trust them per se more than the Buffalo Bills, but rest of the season, the schedule for the Texans is probably easier than the Buffalo Bills after the schedule that we just went over. They're just not that great of a football team at this point in time. I won't count them out just yet in terms of that 7 spot, but it's going to be it's a difficult ride for them making the playoffs. I don't feel confident that they will, but if there's a chance for it, they're a 7 seed. That's really the ceiling at this point for them regular season-wise. This isn't a great defense. In the grand scheme of things, they are an injured group. The offense does need to be better in complementing that defense. But you guys already laid out a bunch of great points. Sean McDermott needs to be better. This defensive unit is what it is. You made a move for Rasul Douglas after losing a Trey White. The replacement of Matt Milano will never come. He means too much to that defense. And I still feel similar to Trey White. You tried your hardest with a Rasul Douglas. But again, there's moments that you could have came away with this win against Denver. And the last game against Cincinnati, you kind of got dominated. So it's tough for me to feel confident with this Buffalo Bills team at all. But again, I give that respect to a Josh Allen who's done superhero type things, but limit the turnovers, dude. They're killing you. And they're killing the Buffalo Bills.